We all have a creative duende who has a unique frame of the world. If we listen to our duende, we will tell our own story. And that's the originality that we have. Ang galing nating Pinoy. And then that can be our contribution to the world. No? Yun ang hinihintay rin ng mundo. Ako po si Kidlat Tahimik, isang manlilikha galing sa Pilipinas. I have been a filmmaker for almost 45 years. And you're the best way to frame the way I do films is I work with the cosmos. No? Bathala na ang filmmaking style ko. Yung kapa-kapa, wala akong script, kinakapa ako. Alam ko more or less yung story, alam ko yung pupuntahan ko. Pero by kapa-kapa, it's also a way. You don't always have to have that exact map that script has, no? We all have a unique duende inside us, a unique creative element. Yung duende ang magkukwento. You don't try to be the Disney of the Philippines. Your duende says, I have my own story to tell, and the world will know my duende story, and I'm not going to be a copycat. It's not really embracing individuality, because in the Western world, individualism is taken to an extreme. It's connected to the culture. The storytelling is part of a collective framework from the culture that I grew up in. The young people today have a expression, to be you, or to be yourself. But it can be completely misunderstood into that kind of ako muna individuality. But I think when I talk about the duende, nakaugat pa rin sa kultura natin. I studied the undergraduate sa UP, speech and drama. Mga kasabay ko sila Lino Brocat, Ben Cervantes. And I was a happy-go-lucky theater person. I guess maybe some unsolicited advice entered my ear. Uy, ang kailangan ng bayan ay mga economists at mga businessmen at mga abogado. They don't need artists. So I decided to go to Wharton. But then because that, I became an economist. And then somehow at one point, nagising ako. I said, teka muna, what am I doing? Writing fertilizer distribution in the third world. And I should be studying the fertility of creating plays. So I decided to quit that, and I was stuck in Munich. I was bankrupt totally. I couldn't even afford an apartment, so I moved out and moved into an artist commune. It was a commune with painters, writers, sculptors, filmmakers. And that's where I met my wife. Catherine was a stained glass artist at that time. And I think whatever happened, it was a cosmic thing, kasi my artistic soul opened up. And among those students there, I was a film student, and he asked me to play a role. And on the weekend, we had to go to the school. The substitute teacher that day was Werner Herzog. He came up to me and he said, "Are you a professional actor?" 3 months later, he came to our commune and asked me if I could play a role in his next film. All this input got me interested in film, and I shot my first film, Perfume Nightmare. And for some reason, I became a national artist. So this is a mini study of my installation, which I didn't explain. It's about the battle between two goddesses of the winds, no? So one of them is Inabian. Inabian is the goddess of the wind from Ifugao. Hey, doggy! So when there's a typhoon coming to the Philippines, to Banawe especially, they pray to her, oh, Inabian, please change the direction. This is goddess of the wind of Ifugao, and she's fighting the goddess of the wind of Hollywood. Christian Hollywood.
Oh.
We have enough of our beautiful stories here. We're tired of your sex and violence formulas. Marami kaming alamat at mythology dito. We're tired of your Harvey Weinstein stories. Whatever I shot, I knew I didn't want to do a Hollywood film. I knew I didn't want to do a Harvey Weinstein story. Alam ko na I want to do something about Filipino experience. And that thing was to free my soul from a colonialistic cocoon. Because I grew up so westernized in Baguio. So that's what my films are about. We all have a creative duende who has a unique frame of the world. If we listen to our duende, we will tell our own story. Kahit man ako'y filmmaker or kahit painter or sculptor or musician, as long as I'm not trying to be like them, I'm not trying to be the Disney of the Philippines or the Picasso of the Philippines, then I think I'm giving my duende a chance. Pero yan ang kalaban natin. Carmen Guerrero Nakpil. She was this writer, and she wrote, "We Filipinos have lived 3 centuries in a convent and 50 years in Hollywood." Wow. Halo-halo culture, di ba? And that says it all. I think binabatay natin yung gusto natin ma-accomplish sa buhay based on the convent and the Hollywood standards. And so sometimes we forget to connect with ano ba talaga yung ginhawa na hinahanap ng Pinoy. Filipino means so many things to so many people. Pero I have to take this in the context of today's world where a lot of Filipinos are somehow being taught to be ashamed of their culture. No? Ito yung legacy ng pagka-colonial natin. Mula nung dumating ang madayuhan, we were always taught na your culture is primitive, backward, lahat ng mga pejorative words. And siguro, sinaulo yan ng ating mga kabataan. So a lot of young people sometimes feel nakakaya itong kaalaman ng ating mga katutubo. And that already chokes. Yung buong daloy ko as an artist has been trying to define this Pinoyness that maybe I lost. And I first saw the light maybe 25 years ago when my mentor, an Ifugao elder, adopted me and brought me to Ifugao. The main thing that he taught me as a mentor was he would always mispronounce the word Indigenous. He would say, "We Indigenous people, dapat we have to fight for our Indigenous culture." And I really loved that mispronunciation. Sabi ko, wow, with that mispronunciation, he combined the genius of the Indigenous into one word. Ang ginawa ko, I even mispronounced further the word. I added the word Indio-Genius to include the fact that we have been colonized, no? That we were called Indios by our colonists. Na-colonize tayo, we cannot un-Indianize ourselves. It's part of us. But if we include the genius of the Indigenous with our Indio-ness, I think we're the race of the future. The world is waiting for our contributions. And I can understand this uhaw na uhaw ang mga Phil-Ams para they can feel grounded. No? They're living in America, which is one of the highest per capita incomes in the world. Pero in spite of all this material upbringing, nararamdaman na yung pagkukulang. No? It's a culture of homogenizing, and it's a culture that can strip away your roots. And that's why maybe for growing up in that homogenized culture, I think yung mga Phil-Am kids are even getting curious about this Kapwa psychology. Di ba? I've met some Phil-Ams, nabasa nila yung Kapwa, and they said, wow, I always thought my grandma was crazy. She was a misfit in America, but it was not because she was crazy. It was because she belongs to an embracing culture, an including culture, a Kapwa culture, compared to the Western industrial ideal na instead of being including, you're excluding. That's what my wife says about her culture in Germany. It's an excluding culture. You're always defining the borders between you and where some Pinoy, yung ako at ikaw ay nagiging isa. That's why many foreigners say, wow, I feel very at home when I'm in the Philippines. Kapwa is, my wife defines it, the self in the other. No? We project the self sa kanya, kaya it's easier to identify magkaisa tayo. So if our Kapwa culture disappears, we're the big loser. And the world is also a loser if Kapwa gets lost because we're all going to be homogenized like them. But you can't talk about cultural preservation or returning to tribal wisdom unless maging curious ulit yung kabataan. O nga pala, galing ni Lolo. It's cool to be like Lolo. Yun, not just like the New Yorkers. It's cool to be like Lolo. Yes, because yung kaisipan ng kabataan, the cultural richness that we have will start to flow in kasi hindi natin really resist. And that becomes a basis for a kind of a new energy because we're not anymore trying to be like them. If only 3 out of 100 this year, nagising doon, wow, okay pala si Lolo. That's already a start. And the next year, another 3. Parang sa bukal, 1 terrace, 3 terraces, 25 terraces. After maybe 1 generation, dadami yung hindi na nahihiya sa kultura nila. Then we can bring back the ancient culture, and then that can be our contribution to the world, no? Our culture of Kapwa, bayanihan, kabutihang loob. Yan ang hinihintay rin ng mundo. They'll stop looking at us as copycats of American culture, and they will listen to us. And I think that's the essence of being a creative where yung duende mo tells the story. And it's not your producer, not Mother Lily, not ABS-CBN. You're telling stories because your duende wants to tell it. And that's the originality that we have. Ang galing nating Pinoy, we're so rich All we have to do is open up to yung kaalaman ng ating mga lolo at lola. Balikan natin yung concept of ginhawa. May ginhawa ako dito sa aking pagka-Pinoy. I'm at home in the world because my Pinoyness is comfortable. I think that is the Filipino dream. To feel at ease and at home in being Filipino. Simple, uncomplicated by what the world is offering today. Sugod, mga kapatid, sa ginhawa.
Thank you very much.